further delay, it's an honor to introduce Raha and Laya for the talk Iran, Women and Revolution. Raha Sabet holds a PhD in women's studies and is a postdoctorate researcher and lecturer at Abo Academy University. Her research spans gender, culture, religion, minorities, social movements in South Asia, and contemporary Iranian history, with a particular focus on developing the concepts of agency and resilience within the humanities and social sciences. Laya Jeremy is an artist with a background in costume design and a PhD researcher in cultural heritage at the University of Turku in Finland. Her research explores Iranian women's embodied practices, examining how voice, clothing, and the female body functions as sites of political expression and resistance. Raha and Laya will be discussing agency and resilience in Iran. Raha's talk is titled Politicized Mourning and Collective Subjectification in Post-Revolution Iran, the Case of Iranian Mothers for Justice. And Laya's will be Revolutionary Bodies, Invisible Change, Wearing Resistance in the Woman, Life and Freedom Movement. These presentations will be followed by a discussion, and it's a pleasure to be here with you both. I'm going to hand over to you, Raha. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy and glad to be today with you. And the article I'm going to, actually, it's a chapter and summarize it for today. So I hope that I can share with you all these concepts and discussion argument I had. So by your permission, I will start. As you said, that it's politicized mourning and collective subjectivation, state violence, and maternal activism in post-revolution Iran. Okay, let's see if it moves. Yeah. This study explores how the Iranian Mothers for Justice politicize mourning in response to state violence, transforming private grief into public resistance. Emerging from the Women Life Freedom movement, their activism redefines maternal identity as a source of political agency, fostering solidarity across social, ethnic, and religious divides in opposition to systematic oppression. Feminist scholarship has shown that motherhood is not a purely private or biological role, but a socially and politically constructed identity shaped by power relations, class, race, and economic inequalities. Scholars such as Adriana Rich and Patricia Hill Collins demonstrate how mothering is embedded in structural conditions while sorry, I just lost this. The feminist okay, so I will read from this. How mothering is embedded in the structural conditions, while feminist economists highlight the political invisibility of caregiving labor. Through their lens of subjectivation theory, motherhood can become a politically charged identity as women transform experiences of care, loss, and emotional labor into collective resistance. Globally, movements such as the Mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, the Women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace, and contemporary material justice movements illustrate how maternal identity has been mobilized to challenge violence and inequality. In Iran, where motherhood holds deep religious and cultural authority, mothers have historically drawn on his maternal moral legitimacy to engage in political activism, particularly since the 1979 revolution, reframing caregiving as a claim to justice, accountability, and social change. Methodologically, this qualitative study draws on ethically sourced interviews, personal narratives, social media accounts, and human rights documentation. The Iranian Mothers for Justice movement must be understood not as a single historical episode, but as a long intergenerational continuum of maternal resistance, shaped by repeated cycles of state violence since the 1979. While its most visible roots lie in the mass execution of the 1980s, the movement today represents a broad collective of women who demand accountability for violence and repression inflicted on their children across decades. It spans multiple moments, from the 1980s execution of Iranian political prisoners and chain murders of Iran to the 1999 Tehran University dormitory attack, the 2009 Green Movement protests, the November 2019 protests in Iran, the Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 shut down, the Women Life Freedom Uprising in 2022, and recent violence in early 2026. It also includes mothers of survivors who have been blinded, traumatized, excluded from education or work, or driven to suicide under sustained repression. What unites this mother is not a single political identity or event, but rather a shared structure of violence and impunity, and a persistent, uncompromising demand for justice. The mass execution of 1980s, particularly the 1988 massacre of political prisoners, constitute a foundational rupture from which maternal activism in Iran emerges. Thousands of political dissidents, including Marxists, members of the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, and ethnic and religious minorities were executed following summary trials or no trials at all. Families were rarely informed, bodies were not returned, and burial sites were intentionally concealed. In response, mothers assume a central role in the struggle for truth. Their activism did not begin as a formal movement, but as a series of urgent questions. Where are our children? Where are they buried? And who is responsible? Khavaran Cemetery became both a physical and symbolic space of resistance. Through weekly visits, collective mourning, writing petitions, and maintaining presence despite harassment and violence, the mothers of Khavaran transformed grief into a political insistence on memory and accountability. By returning again and again to a space designed to erase evidence, they created a shared maternal identity grounded in remembrance and refusal. Despite acting in near total isolation without media or international support in that time, their persistence laid the foundation for later forms of maternal justice activism in Iran. Despite relentless state repression, maternal activism in Iran has shown remarkable resilience and adaptability. After the violent suppression of the 2009 Green Movement, maternal resistance re-emerged under the banner of the Mothers of Lala Park. These women broadened demands beyond remembrance to explicitly call for an end to state violence and the release of political prisoners. Their weekly gathering in Tehran's Lala Park, often met with arrest and intimidation, reaffirmed public mourning as political action. This period also witnessed growing transnational solidarity as women in exile organized parallel action abroad, while mothers across cities within Iran continued to mobilize, reinforcing intergenerational continuity and collective resilience. The November 2019 massacre generated yet another transformation with the emergence of the Mothers of Aban. Confronted with extreme censorship and surveillance, these mothers turned to social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram to document loss, share testimonies, and connect with others. digital mourning became a critical tool for visibility, networking, and collective mobilization. Across interviews and social media posts, certain phrases recur. They said, share pain, standing together. We mother understand each other. These expressions reveal how grief functions as a social connector, producing belonging and solidarity similar to global maternal justice movements around the world. Storytelling and interpersonal encounters are central to sustaining the movement. Narratives shared among mothers circulate grief across time and geography, transforming it into collective endurance. Shole Pakravan's reflection powerfully illustrates this process. When she met mothers whose children had been executed decades earlier, she recognized that grief does not disappear. It changes shape. Her subsequent visits to nearly 100 families across Iran created an informal yet powerful network of recognition, where individual suffering became socially meaningful and politically legible. Such encounters reveal how memory becomes a resource for resistance. Mothers learn from one another how to survive, how to speak, how to remain present under repression. Grief becomes mobile, relational, and politically generative. Although united, the Mothers for Justice are not homogeneous. Religion, ethnicity, region, and political affiliation continue to shape differential vulnerability. Some mothers, particularly those from ethnic and religious minorities, remain marginalized due to systematic discrimination and deliberate erasure by the state. The narratives of mothers from Iran's diverse backgrounds reveal a powerful form of other resistance, one that emerges from positions systematically marginalized within social, economic, and political life. One of the most visible examples of organized maternal resistance emerges in Kurdistan through the Mothers of Reconciliation, founded in 2002. This group brings together mothers of Kurdistan, Kurdish activists across political affiliations to resist repression by the Islamic Republic in Kurdistan, symbolized by white headscarves and shawls signifying peace, dignity, and moral authority. The group echoes global maternal movement while remaining rooted in local political realities. Their aim is not political victory, but the protection of life, preventing further loss, and ensuring no mother endures the same suffering. They advocate for peaceful and rights-based solution to systematic violence. Notably, while similarly formalized maternal organizations are largely absent across several ethnic and regional contexts in Iran, this absence does not indicate political passivity. Instead, it reflects differentiated conditions of repression, marginalization, and constrained mobilization. Azerbaijani Turkish mothers, for example, have participated in protests centered on linguistic rights, cultural recognition, and structural discrimination. Their activism operates within a broader struggle against forced assimilation, but has not yet coalesced into a sustained maternal movement, largely due to repression, fragmentation, and limited organizational space. This uneven visibility highlights how state control and regional power dynamics shape with which maternal voices become legible. Baluchi mothers represent one of the most marginalized yet symbolically powerful forms of maternal resistance in Iran. Living in a region marked by extreme poverty, ethnic discrimination, religious marginalization, and limited access to education and services, Baluch women experiences intersecting forms of oppression based on gender, ethnicity, and class. Despite these constraints, Baloch mothers have repeatedly protested executions and unjust arrest of their children. Their activism remain largely informal due to severe surveillance, conservative tribal structures, and patriarchal norms that limit women's public participation. Religious minority mothers, including Baha'i, Christian, Sunni, Sufi, and Jewish women, face systematic repression rooted in faith-based discrimination. Many lack formal organizations, yet their resistance emerges through informal networks, testimony, and transnational advocacy. The Baha'i case is particularly instructive. Following decades of persecution, including the execution of 10 Baha'i women in Shiraz in 1983, mothers played a critical role in preserving memory and resisting Russia. The global #OurStoryIsOne campaign launched in 2023 transformed these localized histories into a global call for justice, linking Baha'i women's resistance to broader feminist struggle in Iran. The experiences of these mothers demonstrate that marginalized motherhood is not peripheral to resistance, it is foundational. Through their lived vulnerability, these women become political subjects, challenging state power not through formal authority, but through moral legitimacy, memory, and collective recognition. From an intersectional feminist perspective, these maternal experiences reveal how grief becomes political knowledge, marginalization generates ethical solidarity, motherhood is redefined as collective resistance, other voices reshape the center of political struggle. This study resists dominant frameworks that privilege visibility, organization, or urban centrality. Instead, it shows that transformative resistance often emerges from the margins, where women confront the most concentrated forms of structural violence. In sum, the Iranian Mothers for Justice represent a historically grounded, adaptive, and intergenerational movement in which motherhood is transformed from a socially sanctioned role into a political identity of resistance. Through mourning, memory, and solidarity, these women convert personal loss into collective action, challenging impunity and redefining justice under authoritarian rule. Their struggle connects Iranian women's activism to broader patterns of resistance emerging from the global south and offers a crucial feminist insight. When formal political spaces are closed, motherhood becomes a site of political creativity, endurance, and defiance. Thank you.
Thank you, Raha. Does anyone have anything that they want to share in the chat before we move over to Laya? Any insights or takeaways or questions? Okay, Laya, we'll move over to you now. Welcome, Laya.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for participating. I'm Laya. I'm PhD researcher in cultural heritage at University of Turku in Finland. My background is in custom design, and my master is in custom design from Aalto University in Finland, but my bachelor was in play directing, so it's like, this variety of everything. And that's why now for my PhD I'm working between clothing and resistance. So That was my journey, and it came from this artistic background related to custom design and clothing when I was doing my master's. So for today, let me try to share. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Yes? Okay, I cannot hear you. Okay, my PhD in general is about resistance, about women, but this article that now I'm doing at the moment is about resistance and clothing. But for the first one that now today I'm going to discuss about is about listening and our perceive from listening to the voices that we cannot hear from inside Iran and how we perceive this resistance through listening. But now at the moment I'm working on how resistance is worn, dress, deliberate visibility, and everyday resistance after woman life freedom movement. So kinda I'm for today because I wanted to establish the whole concept I talk about, the mixture of my first article and second article. I hope it helps that everyone understand that what I'm in general doing and what I want to say but all of them is about the women and their resistance. So this overview is that my lecture explores that how political listening can expand the imagination of costume designers by attuning the voices of resistance during women life freedom movement, and it examines how clothing become a site of protest, vulnerability and power, and how can political listening shape custom design. And it explores how revolutionary voices, even from a diasporic inspired design choices and transforming garments into symbol of resistance, identity, and cultural change. So the core theme, maybe it's better that I just let you know how I started to write about that. My friend and I, we were listening to some podcasts. That what was one of them. One of the podcasts was happening when woman life freedom was going on still. I mean, the 3/4 months after exactly September 2022 when Woman Life Freedom started. So one of the podcasts was for that time. The other one was for 1 year later, and the other one 2 years later. Now it's almost 3.5 years after Woman Life Freedom. So we listened to those podcasts in different time slots, and it was about it. I mean that participants in the podcast were mostly women that they don't have any voice. They couldn't talk on social media because of, for example, for sure they cannot talk political on social media because it's not safe for them. So these podcasts changed their names and let us know to hear their voices. And it was from different classes, from the society, upper classes, urban classes, people in the small cities, big cities, everywhere. And with that, we understood, okay, with this political listening, we can hear their voices and we can write about them. So it has this diasporic gaze and listening from far away. So the themes are political listening, diasporic distance, custom as care, quiet activism, and visibility and risk that I talk about. Almost, and for sure I talk about this visibility and risk because it's very, very big, and I talk about that also in the other article I have, and garments as resistance, the role of the body in design, and costuming every day, that how we can shape this everyday clothing as resistance, embodied storytelling, and fear. So these are the titles. First one is Diasporic Ears in Quiet Change, shared listening to the voices of women life freedom movement, that The methodology for the first one is listening to these three podcasts I told you. And the second one is how resistance is worn, dress, deliberate visibility, and everyday resistance after Women Life Freedom movement. And for this one, methodology is based on Judith Butler theories and James Scott theories. And Scott talks about everyday resistance, and also Asif Bayat, life as politics, and how normal people can change the revolutions. So I am sure that you know about Women Life Freedom, but after it happened in September 2022 and death of Mahsa Jina Amini, the uprising happened and it sparked a global cry. And because it was about improper hijab that Mahsa got killed in the custody, so after that, clothing again became the symbol of resistance in Iran. And the brief overview is that clothing was never something normal, or it had all the time political aspect in Iran, and we cannot look at clothing without the political side of that. So but it was even before revolution, but after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, mandatory hijab laws were gradually enforced. I mean, couple of years after it was compulsory hijab, and they enforced this law. And in Iran, clothing has historically been a battleground for political and ideological control. And Women Life Freedom movement reignited global conversation on how dress codes reflect system of power and how women reclaim agency through what they wear or refuse to wear. So what is the role of costume designers in political movements? Costume designers are visual storytellers of resistance, and they shape the visual language to protest identity and solidarity, and through color, texture, and they evoke emotions and communicate political messages. And also they translate complex political ideas into symbolic attire of stage, film, or protest visuals, and highlight visible struggles, especially those of marginalized voices, through visual cues. And costume designers interpret and amplify the message of political movements through their designs. Okay, about this methodology that we used for the article, is that what is political listening? Because we kind of had this argument about political listening and how we can perceive what is, from this diasporic distance, how we can perceive what is happening inside the country. For example, me, I can say I didn't get back to Iran. Now it's more than 4 years, and when I wanted to go back, but after this Woman Life Freedom happened, so I didn't get the chance to go there. So now this political listening helps me that I understand exactly, and I feel this closeness to the voices of inside the country, and listening with attention to how people resist through appearance, materiality, and silence. And again, my political listening as method and design starts by listening, and listening is caring, reflecting, and crafting. So political listening, before I listened to this podcast, I didn't know that it has really big strong impact, and it can have this strong impact on me. It was if I want to talk about my feelings, I can say it was very difficult to listen. It was not easy that you just put your headphones and your AirPods and go and walk in the city and listen, because sometimes I was getting too emotional. And I was listening to that with my friend that Raha knows her as well. And we were in Turku, in Finland, in cafes, and we could not complete one podcast. So we had to just take them out and breathe, order coffee, tea, again, come back, breathe, and then listen. Because when they talk about their feelings, they talk about what is happening to them, and you have no idea, that makes it very difficult to listen. So it's really more than hearing, and it's about embodied engagement that happens to you. And it involves discomfort, patience, and care. And podcast become a site of feminist solidarity, especially in diaspora. So about diaspora attunement, I have section in all of my articles that how distance fuels this connection, and it's about emotional, sensory, and political sensitivity that people in diaspora develop towards events, voices, and movements happening back home. And it's not just empathy, it's not just memory, it's an embodied connection to voices and vibrations from afar. And why it matters for designers, you design not just what you see, but what you sense. You connect across distance with textures of emotions, and you allow design to be an act of listening, caring, and remembering. Visibility and risk is the concept I really like, and I think I need to talk about that even more in my writings. So it's about the risk of the visibility that women in Iran take every day, and they do that, and still they are practicing that. So dressing against informed norms. So there are some norms that you have to obey. And women in Iran, especially after woman life freedom, it was also before, but after woman life freedom, they are doing this act every day. And they are taking this risk every day in their normal clothing. So it's political defiance. Visibility invites both danger and courage at the same time. So one of the participants in the podcast were saying that first I put the headscarf around my neck. Then I thought that it might be a sign of fear, as I could immediately put it on my head and put it in my head when I felt threatened. Next, I put it in my bag, but it was still a symbol of fear and suppression. So I decided not to carry it. So this one was when someone was talking about, it's about the practicing that she wanted to avoid completely wearing headscarf. So she did it gradually, step by step. First, it was around their neck, and it's not only about someone, as so many of women have this experience. So they put it around their neck, then in the back, and then maybe they put it in the car, and maybe the last stage is that they put the headscarf at home, and they even don't take it with themselves. So in that case, clothes and garments become as a symbol of resistance. So from silent protest to bold statements, clothing carries stories of fear, pride, and change. For example, in these photos, you can see one of the women has this around the scarf around her neck. The other one has it on her head, and the other one, the last one, at that photo, you can see that she even didn't bring the headscarf with herself. So it's clothing is a very political act, and what women wear is never just fashion, it's deeply political, and women have used clothing to subvert, challenge, and navigate state-imposed dress codes. So the role of body in design, costumes don't just clothes, and the costumes, that don't just clothes bodies, they express them, and designers shape how bodies speak. So the other one is here. This one is one of the case that in one section I'm talking about. So it's about one of the women who wanted to go to university in Iran. It happened 2024, I guess, and she wanted to go inside the university. And in Iran, when you want to enter any places which is related kind of to government, and university is one of them, there are some people that check your appearance, that what you wore and how is your makeup, how is your hairstyle, maybe your nails and everything. It shouldn't be too eye-catching. And she wanted to enter inside the university, and security forces, I would say, they didn't allow her, and she got undressed in front of the university. So this was the refusal, and refusal here is very revolutionary. So it was mandatory dress code, and they used that as control, and she did this refusal as revolution. And after that she did this act, it became one of the bold statements that people in diaspora use, that this kind of underwear. And if you want to know what happened to her, for sure the police came and they arrested her, and now we don't know what exactly happened. At least I don't know what happened to her, but it became one of the symbols. So people use that, that kind of underwear as a revolution sign or as a statement in diaspora. So this one is in one of the countries in Europe. Maybe it's in Stockholm. I'm not sure. And so you can see that woman use that underwear and that kind of clothing as a symbol of refusal and revolution. And if you wonder why is that, if you watch Handmaid's Tale series, maybe you wonder why they were like this, because so many people think, they believe that this series is kind of these customs that women wear, is they and their lives inside that Gilead was the name of the city, is kind of because we have also Islamic Republic has also this mandatory dress code is kind of similar, so that's why they wear these customs like this. So these are the photos I put here to, maybe because some of you have no idea that how is that women look like now in Iran. So I got them from open social media or from Getty Image, that it's accessible, that everyone can access. So yeah, women try not to wear the headscarf, but you can see different kinds. Some of them have on their neck, some of them have they don't have it. They are playing instruments and they try. But if you ask me, is it dangerous? Yeah, for sure it has its danger and it has risk, but still they try to resist. So yeah, these are the example of the clothes. And embody the storytelling. So yeah, I talk also about narratives woven into fabric, and garments hold memory, trauma, and joy, and designers helps narrate them visually, and garments can tell stories of struggle, resilience, and identity, and serving as a medium for embodied storytelling. This part I love, that how fear is worn, fear and daily life. And it's when I talk with my sisters that they are living back in Iran, or every woman from Iran, I always ask that, what do you wear when you go out exactly? And sometimes they describe for me, I wear like this, I wear like this. And I always ask that, do you scare when you go out? But is it dangerous when you go out? And all of these questions and these interviews I try to write about them. But I have one section about how fear is worn. So in a society governed by dress codes, custom become a daily negotiation between fear and self-expression. And designing for different locations, that's also very important, that different locations has different, clothing, and people wear very different for different locations they go. Is it upper, for example, women in Tehran I'm talking about, is it the upper part of the city? Is it the lower part of the city? Is it the restaurant I'm going? Is it cafe I'm going? How women dress in that part, how women, it's very political, and you need to think about that. And so different locations, and it's shifting, it has this shifting fear, home, market, metro, and we can talk that how fear is worn in different locations as well, and what women wear is shaped by who is watching and what the space demands. And Iranian women's daily act of dressing, walking, covering, or uncovering are embodied stories of resistance and resilience. So, about design, these voices inspire custom as emotional archive, and designers can translate breeze, tremble, and silence into fabric, form, and texture, and design becomes a quiet act of protest, deeply rooted in listening. I don't know if I have time, but I try to talk these last slides fast, translating voices into visual. We had one character in one of these podcasts. Her name was Bahar, and Bahar was for very, very a small town. And with listening, because I never get the chance to talk with these women from small towns, because I was never for that places. So she gave us this chance to translate her voice to visual. And the designer perspective, political listening as design method, that I talk about that already, and custom designers are political listeners and translating voice to visuals, and what does defiance look like in fabric. And again, reflection, designing care, how we care through custom, what does feminist care look like in fabric, and how custom design can be a practice of care, especially in response to pain, distance, resistance, and shared stories. And I already said that how would you custom fear or defiance, and what would silence also look like in clothing. And I like this photo. As you can see, that women in the right side, they have this proper hijab that we call it chador, that is it like the black fabric from head to toe, that it covers the whole body. And these women, they have what they want, but it still they have this manto and the scarf, but it's kind of different hijab from those sides. And it's for custom designers that it's very important that how do we express care through custom design, and how can we design for those women we cannot see but whose stories we hear, and what materials we use, what colors, and what silhouettes protect or empower them, and how does care look like different in protest, in grief, as Raha said, and in resistance. Okay, these were final thoughts. The body is a canvas, and this speaks to the idea that our bodies are not just passive objects, but active surface upon which meaning, culture, identity, and resistance are expressed. And think of women who walks unveiled for 5 minutes. Her body becomes a site of defiance, and that body is a living canvas for political meaning. And design is activism, listening is the first stage. And in custom design, every piece, fabric, cut, silhouette transforms the body into a site of storytelling. Especially in political context, how we dress the body becomes a way to speak without words. Thank you.